So, in the last week, we started to define the conceptual frame of evolution of world economic system. Free seats everywhere. Okay, four crucial concepts I would like to define. In the last week, I spoke about why it's so important defining of basic fundamental concepts. Because intellectual communication is not possible without really defined concept. We have to define into the introductory chapter at least four concepts about the evolution of world economic system. The first is a space. We are over. If somebody watched a presentation or participated in the last week in my presentation, you remember a lot of different meanings are in the frame of space. For example, historical approach, geographical point of view, psychological approach, or ecological definition. We arrived to the second concept. We started only the process of procedure of definition. In the last week, I started define how we can divide the time. This was the last slide, I remember. Okay, it's broken. Good. The first one, the first calendar we introduced follow the astronomical information. The two basic calendars we even know based on sun trajectory around the Earth, or other point of view, Earth trajectory around the sun calendar, other one, a moon calendar. After the agrarian revolution introduced a vegetation period, seasons, which play a crucial role in the agrarian works. Liturgical hours when great religion, for example, Muslim religion, for example, Christian religion, and Shintoism, and any other great religious system somehow divided the day, the rhythm of the life, according to liturgical hours. Mechanical clocks introduced first China or Korea, and devices for timing, a sundial, this is the basic, it's a stick only, a water clock, incense burner, candle, and the mechanical clocks. We are over, I spoke about most detailed form in the last week. Look at the next one. The next one, a historical time, a philosophical or practical time. Historian authors even in the antiquity and the Middle Ages and early modern time, used a very special time concept. We can define the time concept of early authors according to three categories. Linear. A linear means that each of folks, each of nation, each of empire follow the same trajectory from the past into the direction of the future. Same. Antiquity, it's economic system, medieval economic system, modern economic system. Each of nations on the earth follow the same trajectory. One direction. It means irreversible. The present, no other way, only into the direction of future. No chance for traveling back to the past. A lot of novels wrote about, a lot of movies made about the possibility of traveling to the past. It's not true according to this concept. And the cumulative. A cumulative means, imagine a cumulative concept like a puzzle. Everybody knows which is the puzzle. A small piece is taken into the right place, we can realize which is the real picture on the puzzle. And until the end of 19th century, the historian imagined the past like each of deeds of human, one piece of puzzle. And the mission and the task of historian taken to the right place. And this was the concept, the philosophy, until the end of 19th century of historian, claiming the small pieces of puzzle, take to the right place. And had a discussion between and among the historians, is right or not right place. It's good puzzle or not good puzzle. Until the end of 19th century, each of historian and each of intellectual imagined the past according to linear, irreversible, and cumulative time concept. But at the beginning of 20th century, introduced a new concept, a cycle. Basically, not historian was and not philosopher were who introduced the cycle concept, but economists. Why? Because they would like to earn money. Probably you know the movie of Wolf of Wall Street. Everybody would like, the brokers would like to earn money. How able to earn money, for example, a broker in the bourse or stock of exchange? Somehow able forecast the future. How possible forecast the future? How possible? In the rational world. Because at the beginning and the introductory chapter, I spoke for you that there are a lot of different strategy of cognition. For example, magical cognition, spiritual cognition. But I have a license only to the rational cognition. Look at the rational cognition. In the case of rational cognition, to my mind anyway, to my information, had two and unfolding two strategies. The first one, a modeling, making a model, somehow a process, economic process, social processes, historical processes. The simplest version of model is a Coke model, you know, a Coke automat. Take one coin, push a button, and receive one bottle of Coke. Generally, this is the simplest modeling, some process, for example. Take, for example, some investment, it follows some trajectory, and receive the benefit. This is the simplest one. Majority of model, more complicated. Probably in the frame of majority of audience came from the Faculty of Economics, and I'm sure you learn more complicated models. Okay, this one. Our mission not analyze the modeling, but other possibility for forecast of future is a process analysis. At the end of 19th century, founded a lot of statistical office and recon and picked a lot of economic statistical information about the production, about the prices, about the salaries, everywhere. And the economists who would like to earn a lot of money, like the hero of Wolf of Wall Street, try to understand there are not a rhythm, a regular rhythm on the change of prices, on the change of salaries, on the change of economic processes in general sense. And some economists realized and verified existence of cycle. For example, one of the first one, a Kitchen, a British economist, verified that in some economic process there are a 40-month long, 3 or 4 years long cycle. Up and down, and repeat, and repeat. Other one, a French scholar, introduced, for example, Juglar in the 70s of the 19th century, a 6 to 8 years long cycle. And the longest one, which used by economists, is Nikolai Dmitrievich Kodregev, a Russian scholar, 40 to 60 years long cycle. Why so important? Why so important? Because if somebody realized a cycle, somebody watched the movie of Limitless. I suggest to you, because a little bit same problem, try to demonstrate this movie. If somebody able deeply analyze economic processes and able forecast the future, buy, for example, a bill of exchange when the price is low, and sell when high, and earn a lot of money. Therefore, the attention of economists turned toward our process analysis. And recently, for example, Limitless demonstrate well, intellectual and AI capacity, high rate of AI capacity, focused to forecasting of economic process. It's not so easy to forecast the future. Look at, for example, the meteorological service to the following days. Not so easy. Okay, but why so interesting for us? Because some historians turned toward cycle analysis and recently introduced even the historical analysis, the cycle concept. The first person who introduced a cycle concept to historical analysis, a French scholar. His name is Ernst Labrus. Ernst Labrus analyzed the precondition of French Revolution at the end of 18th century. And very interesting, the analysis. I simplified, it's a large book about this topic, only the simplified approach to the precondition of French Revolution, before the French Revolution. For 7 years, the harvest, agrarian harvest, was very bad. Very, very bad. Somebody remember the 7 bad harvest story from other source?
From the Bible?
From the Bible. This is the dream of Pharaoh. And Joseph able to solve the dream of Pharaoh. Why so important the 7? Because in the traditional time, traditional society, no technology for conservation. Therefore, the stock of traditional society until the end of 7 years expired. And the hunger so harsh that destroyed the social network. Look at, for example, the French Revolution. On the French Revolution, somebody remember secondary school historical memories, historical information. It was very cruel. There is a French student here. You know the technology of guillotine. It's very efficient technology. The cruel behavior of the people, of the contemporaries, basically was returned or we can understand from the subsistence crisis. So harsh hunger destroyed the rural area of France. Therefore, the acceptance of the hierarchy and the social prestige cancelled everything. Okay, Labrus, and the next one, Fernand Braudel, who was the most important historian of the 20th century. He analyzed a secular cycle. It was a great innovation. Why? Because a historian analyzed the history according to short term. Short term means a rhythm of generation. How long a generation? Is there a different form of the calculation about the generation? But one generation changed between 15 to 30 years. This is the rhythm of generation. But Fernand Braudel introduced a new concept. There are secular long cycles even in the history. Why is so important, the secular cycle? Because if somebody living in the heyday, in the great recovery, this is the normality. If somebody living in, for example, the period of military campaign, military operation, this is the normality. It's very interesting. Somebody visited in ex-Yugoslavia, Balkanic Peninsula. Somebody came from Serbia or Croatia. Nobody. It was very interesting because I am partly geographer. And during the Yugoslavian war, in the 1990s, it's very long and very cruel procedure, much calmer compared with the Russian-Ukrainian war, but it was a very cruel civil war. A civil war more cruel than the, for example, when we visited in Croatian area, in the city, some 3 or 4 buildings burned down. Any other, harmless. Only 3 or 4. Why? In this building live the minority. And therefore, who will be the victim? and who will be the aggressor is depend on the position. Who is the minority and who are the majority. Okay, turn back to this story. And a lot of psychologists travel to ex-Yugoslavia for curing the trauma of local people. And very interesting, the children know any sign of trauma. Why? They was born in wartime. This was a normality. The adult people, it's traumatized. Why? Because they had a normal life before the Civil War. Okay, now turn back to the story. Secular side. For the children who socialized in wartime, this is the normality. This is the normality. If somebody, a great recovery, this is the normality. Therefore, how change the rhythm of history? I show some simplification about it. This is the cycle of Fermat-Brodel. In the Fermat-Brodel cycle, there are two phases of the cycle, A or B. Unfortunately, it don't work. I try to activate somehow. Okay, yeah. We can define one cycle, Brodel cycle. Brodel follow the cycle concept of Kondratyev, the Russian economist. We can define one cycle according to three information. Starting point, you can see the red stick, and the turning point, and a closing point, closing period. Okay, if we are looking, for example, evolution of European economy, the European economy started in the middle of 13th century. Why? Sorry. Why? Because the productivity of European economy only in the middle of 13th century was able to produce a surplus. Any form of trade necessary produce a surplus. Why? Because in the early Middle Ages, majority of rural community lived in self-consummation. No enough high productivity for surplus. Therefore, the first cycle of European economy started in the middle of the 13th century. The turning point of the first cycle of European economy we defined by Brodel to the middle of the 14th century. Why? Because this is the period of Black Death. You remember, I hope, about the Black Death. It's a great plague, the Black Bubonic Plague devastation in Europe. Why so important? Because whole of the population of Europe, 90 million on that time, and overpopulated. Later, a little bit more detailed form, I will speak about. 90 million. Arrive a bubonic plague. You remember the COVID-19. A little bit same story, but much more cruel. Because 40 million, almost each second people died in consequence of bubonic plague. But why so important milestone of European history? Because the contemporaries understood a feudal system wasn't able to solve the problems and started the modernization. It's very interesting. Modernizing of Europe started the deepest humanitarian catastrophe, whole of European history. Okay, this is the turning point. And the closing point is, the closing point is at the beginning of 16th century, great geographical discoveries opened the way onto the direction of Americas, onto the direction of Indonesia, onto the direction of Africa and eastern part of Eurasia. It's crucial because Europe was open the way of international and the global communication. It's it might happen other way because the Chinese vessels sailed to Africa and sailed to America much before Columbus and much before the Portuguese sailor. Okay? This is the closing point. And start the second cycle. The second cycle start when close the first one, and the turning point is the middle of 17th century. Why so important the 17th century? Because on the Middle Ages, the greatest civilization focused to Mediterranean Sea, Italian Peninsula, and Spain and Portugal, and the eastern part of the Mediterranean Sea, Byzantine Empire, later, how the name is, Turkish Empire, Ottoman Empire. This was the richest part of Europe. But in consequence of great geographical discoveries and changing the trading routes, trading highways toward Atlantic Ocean, this area is down. The Mediterranean area down from the middle of 16th century, which is the closing date of second cycle, according to Fernand Braudel, the middle of 18th century. Why? Because this is the dawn of Industrial Revolution and the dawn of French Revolution. Why so important? Because French Revolution introduced a new form of construction of state. Before French Revolution, the most important frame of organizing of European state was the empire. Who were the ruler of empire? A lot of dynasty. But basically, these were imperial phase of human evolution. After that, after the French Revolution, the crucial organizing factor, the guiding force of state became a common language and a common culture. Before, not so important. Look at, for example, the Hungarian history. In the Hungarian history, until the middle of 19th century, the official language was a Latin. Not the Hungarian, a Latin. The language wasn't so important. And for example, other good example, how transformed from the phase of empire to the phase of national state in the Hungarian history at the beginning of 19th century was a great phase of modernization. And the greatest Hungarian, the contemporary's name, Count István Széchenyi, the greatest Hungarian, he communicated German much better than Hungarian. And his diary wrote in German. Therefore, the generation of phase of empire, the language wasn't so important. Majority of people was a multilingual. Like, for example, somebody visited in Transylvania. Capital of Transylvania, former time was a part of Hungary, Hungarian kingdom, and recently is a part of Romania. But the greatest university in Transylvania, University of Kolozsvár, Cluj. Free language, Hungarian, Romanian, and German. Because from the historical past, these minorities live together in this area. This is the normal situation in the traditional society. Live together, different people, and no conflict. And very important indicator, which is the most important guiding force. Why the people kill each other? Look at, for example, early modern time. From the 16th to the 18th century. Why kill each other? Religion. The most important guiding force on the time of Reformation and Counter-Reformation was a religion. And very important indicator, it's possible, last week I spoke about yet. Why so important? Because in the traditional Europe, which was the focus of the life, after the death, everybody would like to gym for eternal life. Not real life, it's very hard and dirty and very short, but everybody focuses to the the eternal life, after the death. Recently, which is the focus? The consuming period from 20 to 45 or 50. I am over here. I am not a good consumer in this aspect. You are really on the generation of consumer. Everybody would like to be young. Not by chance in the 80s was a very well-known and symptomatical song, Forever Young. You know, it's possible. Alphaville, it's a German musician name. Okay, turn back to the story. The closing day at the dawn of Industrial Revolution, which transformed whole of the economical processes and the formation of national state and the formation of new guiding force of European state structure. Okay, look at the third, according to Ferdinand Brodel. The first one, the starting, same than the closing in the second one, and the turning point is the age of peace treaties after the Napoleonic Wars, and the restructuring and introducing a new ruling force to European political and economic life, nationality, equality, and cancelling the special status of nobility, and generally formation of modern state. And the closing date is not for the Hungarian millennium, is 1896. This is the 1000 years millennium of foundation of Hungarian state, but not for that applied by Ferdinand Brodel, the closing date to the third cycle. But this is the last peaceful decade. At the beginning of 20th century, a lot of local war was before the First World War. And the last cycle started, last peaceful decade of the 19th century, and the turning point in the middle of 70s of the 20th century. Why? Because closed the greatest recovery of history of humankind, the greatest economic recovery. Look at the comparison. One simple indicator. Look at the trajectory of humankind. Human population of humankind reached 1 billion, according to American English, 1 billion at the beginning of 19th century. At the end of Second World War, 2.5 million. To the end of 20th century, 6 million, and recently, according to estimation, reached the 8 billion, each of the billion. Okay, and look at the jump. 1/2 century, and the jump from 2.5 to 6. It was the greatest, no comparable economic recovery than after the Second World War. And this recovery closed with the crisis of oil prices, the first oil prices crisis, and turned down. It's true, this forecast and reconstruction, historical reconstruction, recently we are in economic down. It's possible, true or not. Last lecture I spoke about, this is the weakness of rational cognition, no final cognition, but quite a high proportion of reality and validity of this approach. Okay, look at the Ferdinand Brodel time categories, because we would like to apply these categories in the historical analysis, because majority of, at the beginning of course I have to define the concept, but majority of this course I will analyze case studies. But validity of case studies, very important precondition, define the meaning. Okay, Ferdinand Brodel time categories. The first category is a short term. Short term is a historical process which start and close in less than 1 year's long term. For example, this course will unfold on the frame or unfold in the frame of short term. Because we start in February and close at the end of June, probably. Okay, the second one, a medium term, temps de conjoncture as named by Fernand Brodel. It's mean a historical process which longer one than 1 year, but less than 10 years, less than 1 decade. For example, completion of closing your university studies in optimal approach, less than 10 years. But in university there is a special category. It's named a PhD student, not real PhD student, but the student whose studies, university studies, longer than 10 years. It's possible. Why? Because to be a student, it's very comfortable social status. I remember we panicked, for example, in the last year, our university studies drank so much that unbelievable, because somehow we would like to postpone the starting of and the immigration to the area of world of working, because studies is the most comfortable phase of the studies compared with the secondary and elementary school, the university, to my experience. Okay. Anyway, medium is less than 10 years. And the longest one, and the great innovation of Fernand Brodel, a long duration, if translate to English. Some process, for example, trajectory, as I try to demonstrate, evolution of world economy, unfold a circular cycle, frame, long duration. Look at, for example, history of Roman Catholic Church, unfolded in secular dimension. We are not able to describe whole of the processes only on the frame, on the categories of generation, much longer. For example, reform, counter-reform, and restructuring of institutional system, and so on and so. A lot of process unfold, and we can describe only on the frame of long duration. Okay. But if we are looking at the history on large point of view, we can identify some processes which are linear, irreversible, and cumulative. You remember this definition? One trajectory, the same trajectory, one direction into the direction of future, and accumulate the deeds of human. It's a green line, exponential trajectory mean linear, irreversible, and cumulative. And world population, for example. If we are looking at the world population, 74,000 years ago, whole of the human population, whole of the world, decreased under 5,000. 5,000. Why? Because it's connected, this great subsistence crisis, to the volcano eruption Toba, located in Indonesia, Java, I remember, and made a nuclear winter. You know which is the nuclear winter? It's a veil of volcanic dust. It's isolating whole of the atmosphere. First one. Secondly, changed the atmospherical circulation, which made unbelievable deep drought in Africa, and population decreased under 5,000. Very close to the extinction. Very close. At the beginning of Christian calendar, estimate the population 200 and 300 million. As I mentioned, at the beginning of 19th century, reached 1 billion. At the end of Second World War, 2.5 million. And at the end of second millennia, is 6 and recently 8. My first question today, because we are approaching to the half of lecture, therefore I try to mobilize somehow my kind audience. It will continue voting. We are using a democratic skills. Two options, like general. will continue endlessly, the exceptional growth, or will stop? First question, first possibility, will stop the exponential growth. Who vote on the side? Rising the hand, no paper, no electronic devices. 1, 2, 3, 4, minority. Second option, will continue endlessly. And we will travel to the Mars and Venus and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I am very surprising. No, we'll stop. We'll stop. It's a scientific approach, scientific focus. Why we'll stop? Look at the process of modernization. Which is the differences between the traditional family and the modern family. In the traditional family were born 10 children. I remember my grandmother's sister was born 10 children. 10 children. But in the modern society, decreased the fertility. For example, somebody know how many children born in modern Hungarian society, recent Hungarian society per women, because unfortunately I am not able to be pregnant. How many? You can show, for example, 2, 1, 3, 2.5. It's practically not possible. Half was born, but only 2 point. But in modern society, each of modern society under the reconstruction, the rate of reconstruction. How able to survive a European society? Because rate of fertility under the reconstruction. Population of Hungary is decreased year by year. How able? Which is the key for survival? Immigration, of course. Immigration. It's a very interesting question. Later I will return to the problem of immigration. Because until the 1960 had European emigration surplus. Only after the 60s turned back and increased the rate of immigration to Europe. And without immigration, no chance for survival. Okay, but it's other story. Recently very deeply politicized, but it's, if we are looking the reality, no other option. Okay, world population, sorry. World population. Energy per capita. If we are looking at human history, which used the Australopithecus, or early species of and subspecies of human, the muscle of body, no any other. It's named a somatical energetical system. Each of energy came from the muscle. After the agrarian revolution, domestication of animals introduced a new energy, new source of energy. It's a draw power of camel, draw power of cattle, draw power of horses. But very important to mention that until the Industrial Revolution, 70% of energy which used Sumerian Empire, Egypt and China in the antiquity, or even in France on the time of Louis XIV, the King of Sun, 70% of energy came from the muscle of human, and only 30% of energy came from the dull power of domesticated animals and the simple devices, simple engines like a windmill and water mill. Therefore, until the Industrial Revolution, it was a crucial muscle of humans. Therefore, this is the rationality of traditional time, more people, stronger state. But somehow, This is the older logic, older approach, traditional approach to the function of the society. But recently, energy, quantity of energy increased unbelievable manner in consequence of activation of fossil fuels. Fossil fuels, its energy came from the sun. Similarly, why? Because, for example, coal is a forest under the soil, under the lithosphere. And the oil and the gas, any other nuclear power, somehow are fossil fuels. But in consequence of application of fossil fuels, unbelievable quantity of energy we activated. Look at, for example, if possible, in the last lecture I spoke about the energetical slave. Energetical slave spoke about? Not yet. No. No? Because I have a lot of lectures, a lot of different places, and therefore sometimes I wasn't able to realize which I told or which didn't. Energetical slave, it's a simplification. Because if somebody tell for you that I used so many calories, so many kilojoules, and any other, but an American environmental historian introduced the concept of energetical slave. Energetical slave means one human, it's a neutral gender, one human who working whole of the day, without break, without vacancy, whole of the day. Like, you know the movie of Matrix, it's a dystopia. On the Matrix show one human is a what the name is?
Battery?
Yeah. It's, for example, it's an accumulator somehow for the working of engines, working of artificial intelligence, which I show the Matrix. And if we are looking at the human, there is one human, one energetical state, working 24 hours. And look at one, for example, it's calculated the first time in the 80s, in the 20th century, how many energetical slaves used an American citizen per day. Switch on the light, activate, for example, switch on the television, and drove with the car, and so and so. And one American citizen, a simple, average citizen, used in energetical unit 78 energetical slaves. European society not consume so high level, therefore a general, for example, for you, using 65, 63 energetical slaves. Why is it interesting? Because we are living in energetical sense like aristocracy on the time of antiquity. Because in the aristocrats had 200 slave, real slave. But for real slave necessary to sleep, recovery somehow, but we are using energetical sense like aristocracy of antiquity. Everyone. Okay, energy per capita. Good. And the last one, information. Very important peculiarity of human evolution, a cultural evolution. Generation by generation, the human able transfer the crucial information. For example, every generation had to learn how able to make a fire and so and so. Generation by generation. But had a milestone, a lot of important milestones. For example, the first milestone is, you know the name of Noam Chomsky? Noam Chomsky. Who knows the name of Noam Chomsky? It's a linguist. And universal grammatic theory? Universal grammatic theory? No? It's very important. I open the bracket. Universal grammatic theory means I have one of my best friends specialized mathematical linguistics. Therefore, I have a lot of information. We met in the military service. A military service, it's a very special experience. Nobody would like to go under the flag, but it's somehow experienced in the prison. Closed, and we lived under order. But I met so interesting people never in the civil life. And I remember when first time I met with you, he came from Buda, somebody know. It's a capital of Hungary. There are two parts. Pest, it's a eastern part, it's a plain area, and there is a Buda, a mountain area. And the people who living in Pest and Buda, it's divided one to other. Two different castes, like in India. And he came from Buda, on the top of Hungarian society. I came from the eastern boundary of Hungary, underclass status. And I never, like you, I never met like you, he never met like me. Therefore, it was somehow a social turning up, and a lot of different people take beside each other. Okay, and he told to me the theory of Noam Chomsky. A universal grammatics means that invention of Noam Chomsky on the brain, our brain, everybody's brain, there is a DNA-like grammatical system. The structure of grammatical system. But the words, the place of the bracket for words open. This is the reason, according to theory of Noam Chomsky, that everybody able to learn on the baby period very, very quickly. Because the grammatical system ready, only necessary memorize the words. If somebody born in Eskimo society, we learn very quickly the language of Inuits. If Hungarian, if Chinese, but the grammatical system is ready. This is the reason of very, very quickly learning of language on the young, for example, not able to use a toilet, but able to communicate fluently. For example, if you remember your age, I have 4 children, therefore I have a practical experiences from other side. Okay, turn back to the information. The first phase of cultural evolution, passing the information. For example, about technology, making a fire, making a weapon, making a building, making. But very interesting, you know, somebody know the Celtic religion? Celtic, yeah. Who were the priests of Celtic religion? Druids. The Druid religion, the Celtic religion, no written form, no written version. Each Druids memorized each of poems and each of text. When the last Druids died, all of the knowledge expired. But majority of religion wrote down, therefore very important, for example, in the Christian environment, the Bible, because able passing the information if the last priest died. The last priest died. A lot of movie and movie maker use this problem, able to passing information or not. In the next milestone is writing, and the next one printing, and recently the cyberspace able to proliferate huge quantity of information. I passed my childhood in traditional time, and our problem was not enough information. Recently I am moved, I am quite aged for that, I survived to the modern society. Recently the problem too much, the information. Okay, but the trajectory is exponential, a green line, to the information. Okay, but jump back to the definition. Look at almost the last term, because we define the space, define the time, and describe the frame of the time, and look at the appearance of world economic system theory. Very important to define how change a history, a direction of historical research. If possible, I told this information yet in the first introductory lecture, but I repeat, this is the most efficient form of the learning, which is the function of the history. Basically, a history, this is the memory, one community. For example, one village. I socialized in a small village. And I repeat, I remember, I came from before the television. During my childhood, no television. Everybody spoke with each other. And the older people repeated the same stories. And the new generation, it's very boring for them, but memorized the stories. And generation by generation passed, like a druids, not so high information, not so spiritual information, but information. And I remember when somebody moved from my village to other place, it was dead for the local people. Because no chance for meeting day by day, somehow, and it came back, like Jesus, for example. It's not good comparison, but if somebody lived in the community, was a real number. If somebody left, somehow that. And I remember the function of the community, but maybe a memory of city, memory of nation, and memory whole of humankind. This is a memory. Which is the function of the memory? A memory recall information. Information about the former experiences. It's great advantage. Why? Because if somebody on the past was able to solve the problem and use the same technology and solve the same problem. Therefore, a history is not only a hobby. And looking old paper, looking, for example, archaeological information. History, this is the somehow a profession of making and cleaning a history. Memory. Not by chance, each of politicians try to rewrite a past. Somebody remember how started the war between Ukraine and Russia? Putin published one article, one study on the Vrasaya Gazeta that really there is not such nation than Ukraine. Change the memory. Change the memory. And look at the price of the change of memory. Therefore, it's very dangerous. Or look at a personal example. If you have one relative or fellow who has, which is the sickness, lost the memory, it's Alzheimer, symptom Alzheimer. The people not lost their memories, not able, for example, use the physical environment, not able to communicate the close environment. It's very dangerous. Therefore, working with memory, a personal memory, a collective memory, a memory of community is a crucial. And there is a very high price, is deformation of memory. Okay. When formed the national states, as I mentioned in the cycle of Fernand Brodel, a job of historian was writing down of formation of national state. Therefore, the first layer of history, political history, military history, and history of law. How formed the national state? The second level, at the beginning of 20th century, when I realized the economic integration, economic history. The next layer in the 30s of the 20th century, on the time of formation of mass society, social history. The next layer, no, I missed one, because after the Second World War, it was a great depression of the power of cognition. Because before the Second World War, a lot of politicians wrote the narratives that we are real and valuable ambition conquering other countries. Therefore, after the Second World War, the historian turned toward the big data analysis. It named a quantitative analysis. A huge database picked and reckoned and collected from production, historical production, demographical data, so and so, and would like to understand from database analysis, statistical analysis, the meaning of history. Okay, and the next one, change of value system and the mentality. And for example, which kind of clothes wear the people. It's possible, last lecture I spoke about, in the traditional style, if two people met on the street, not necessarily speaking with each other. From the clothes, everybody was able to realize the other one, which region came from, which is the age, marital status, and the social status. Each of that on the clothes. Because the cloth was a social code. Even though, because I am looking your clothes, I am able to divide 4 marketing strategy which apply in the how the name is how the name is on the television. It's popularized some production which is not so easy to find. The words don't come easy. Not commercial. Okay.
Marketing, advertising?
Marketing, advertising. Yeah, because if you are watching the television or YouTube channel or any other social media, there are under pressure of marketing. Therefore, our decision under the orientation and of course depend on the income. Okay, and the last one, the last period of historical thinking, ecological thinking, which realized that in the humankind there are a double nature. We are a bearer of culture, but we are animals. We are animals with biological needs. Moreover, environmental change, it's able to direct the process of historical event. For example, the simplest one, battlefield and the weather, for example, able to influence the result of the battle, for example. It's very simple. Look at one story. One of my friends specialized to the history of Second World War on the Russian area. It's the Plan Barbarossa. According to Plan Barbarossa, which applied by German army, there is a chance reaching the goal, the targets of Barbarossa, reach the Ural Mountain and the Caucasus on the southern part of Soviet Union. And but on the following winter was one of the hardest winter of whole of the instrumental observation of Russian history. And the proportion of the lost soldier on the Wehrmacht, of German army, a little bit more than 100,000 lost on the battle, lost on the fight, and same proportion was dead by frozen. Why so interesting? Because frozen down whole of the front, and on this winter, 7 December happened something. 7 December, 1941, 7 December. Somebody know what happened? Pearl Harbor. Japan army, Japan fleet, it's attacked Pearl Harbor. Why so important? Because on the time Chinese students there are here. China was under control of Japan. Therefore, a Russian military, Russian generals, Soviet generals, afraid from double direction of attack, from direction of China or direction of Western Europe by German army. And after Pearl Harbor, a great winter slowed down Wehrmacht, and in consequence of Pearl Harbor, realized a Siberian army moved to European direction. And if somebody watched the movie Enemy on the Gate, the turning point of Second World War was a Battle of Stalingrad. And which troops won the Battle of Stalingrad? The Siberians, of course. Therefore, the Vedder, the general Vedder, as I mean in the strategical analysis, the general Winter won the Kuso battle on this winter. Therefore, we have partly animal nature, animal character of human, other side, a physical environment, a player, actor of human history. Okay, look at the story. Basically, the importance of economic processes in the human history introduced a French historian, first generation of Annales, this is a journal, a historical journal. Okay? Second generation jump over, and Emmanuel Ladurie was the leader of third generation, was born 2 years ago. And the founder of world economic system was Immanuel Wallerstein. Somebody listened about the Immanuel Wallerstein? Nobody? Immanuel Wallerstein's story, it's very typical, but he was very creative and solved the problem, solved a very great crisis, greatest crisis of his life. As I mentioned, if somebody closed the university studies and finding a job, not so easy. It happened the same with Immanuel Wallerstein. He graduated at the New York University and no job. Didn't find a job in United States, therefore traveled to Africa and participated a lot of program, a lot of economic supporting program in Africa. In South Africa, in Mozambique, in Angola, in Congo, a lot of program, participated a lot of program without almost any success. And try to understand why no success in front of the investment, intellectual and financial investment, and no any result. And his conclusion was that the basic problem with the African state, that bad position in locate and occupy bad position in the international economic network. It was the first, it's real. Like for example, playing the card, very low value of the card playing in the international trade. First. But the second question came from the first. Why not successful any kind of supporting of aid program? That when started this, how unfolded this bad international status. And according to conclusion of Immanuel Wallerstein, this bad status of peripheral countries started in the age of geographical discoveries. It's a historical, transformed the problem of underdeveloping a historical problem. It started in the 16th century. You remember the second cycle of global economic evolution. It started at the beginning of 16th century. Okay, came from Immanuel Wallerstein and published a very seminal book about this problem, Modern World System. The second milestone, when Robert Brenner, it's I remember German scholar, realized that the capitalism even appeared in Europe Middle Ages. It was a great innovation and invention. Why? Because if we imagine the feudal world, who are the normal behavior on the feudal world? The behavior of nobility, so prestige and military skill and so and so. Therefore, for a long time discussed a lot that no roots of capitalism in the European history. But Brenner verified it's not true in the economic, in the agrarian commercializing of agrarian products show even technology and the techniques of capitalism much former. And the next milestone for the making of world economic theory was introduction and discovery of proto-industrialism. Somebody know which is the proto-industrialism? Who? Nobody? A proto-industrialism, it's a simplest version, England. Look at England. If we are looking at fairy tales, how lived the peasant, lot of words, it's not true, not true. Which is the key grain which produced by peasants? Wheat, barley, rye. How long necessary working on the arable land? On the time of plowing and sowing and on the time of harvesting. For peasant of traditional time, a lot of free time, a lot of free time. Therefore, the trader paid for the peasant some industrial activity. For example, making shoes, making clothes. If somebody was some industrial experiences, collaborated with merchant and temporarily on the free time made industrial products. It was a quite general practice in the traditional world. A lot of peasants had industrial activity. This is the proto-industrialization. Why is so important? Because when start a great industrial revolution in England, the peasant who moved to Manchester, to Birmingham, to Glasgow, not a peasant, came from the horn of cattle, but had some pre-industrial practice. Therefore developed so quickly English industrial revolution. And the last one is a Fernand Braudel, I mentioned more times a Fernand Braudel, who summarized the knowledges about about the formation of world economic system. Good, Immanuel Wallerstein, and I show a very short speech of Immanuel Wallerstein because it's very important to my mention, listening, a real author, how able to describe the crucial knowledges about this problem. Sorry for bad quality of the picture, but the information is crucial.
Okay, I think what you described is my search for the appropriate unit of analysis. And what I came to feel some 30 years ago is that all of modern social science, the last 150 years, has had explicitly, or at least implicitly, a unit which was in fact the state. And so we assume that social action occurred within the framework of the state. States had political structures, states had economies, states had cultures, states had unities of various kinds, and each state was in some sense independent logically of every other state. They were following parallel paths. And I came to feel that that didn't make sense, fundamentally didn't make sense, that is not where social action occurred. It occurred within the framework of larger historical systems, which I call world systems. And then, yes, I thought that the modern world system was a break, a significant break from previous kinds of world systems, and that it took the form of a capitalist world economy, and that therefore to understand the modern world and how it operated, one had to see it as a developing historical process of the creation of, a functioning of, and expansion of a capitalist world economy, which initially, I have to say, the word world does not mean the entire globe. It means a large unit But in fact, one of the characteristics of the capitalist world economy is that over several centuries it expanded to incorporate the entire world by the 19th century. So I shifted my emphasis to a different unit of analysis, which was that of the world system, and concentrated my concerns on the modern world system, which, as I said, was a capitalist world economy. And now it's true that then turned me to necessarily some basic epistemological questions. I didn't realize that at first, initially, but I realized that when I started getting criticized for not conforming to various epistemological norms that I then realized were widespread and oppressive, if you will, but in any case I thought incorrect. So it is true that I had to turn my attention then to the questions of what is a discipline, what are the boundaries of discipline, what's the logic of the discipline, and then what I now talk of as what are the structures of knowledge that we have constructed to frame the ways in which we think and the ways in which we teach others to think, which is the university system, and whether they're adequate, which I don't think they're adequate, and I don't think they're correct, and I do think they're breaking down, but that's another story.
For anyone struggling with dementia, do not...
Okay, basically not so easy to survive university with the interdisciplinary topic, because I am a partly similar situation. I am a partly historian, partly geographer, and nobody would like to offer a job, even history or geography, because my identity different, but majority of great innovation came from interdisciplinary area. Okay, turn back to the story and look at the conclusion of the master. Basically, knowledge is about formation of world economic system summarized by Fernand Braudel, and this is the seminal work of him, French and English translation. Okay, later I will show the speech of Fernand Braudel, but look at the innovation. Okay, according to conclusion of Fernand Braudel, define the system of world economy in two different forms. The first one, économie mondiale, this is the unit and the frame whole of the economic integration of the world. And the second one, world economy, world-economy, économie monde, it's a French version, which are integrated economic unit of the world. Look at the 12th century. If we are looking the whole of the earth on the 12th century, we can identify a rank list of economic integration. Winner is China. Winner is China. In some last lecture I told to you that in the Chinese history, everybody agreed that China was ever the most developed country. In the 19th and 20th century happened some bad experiences, but turned back the same trajectory into history. In the 12th century, obviously, China was the most developed country. The second one, India. But very interesting, if we are looking regional level, not the whole of the civilization, regional level, the most developed region, whole of the world, until the Industrial Revolution, Bengalia, recently Bangladesh. Why? Because until the Industrial Revolution, the most important indicator and source of the wealth of nation, agriculture. And look at the landscape of Bengalia, alias Bangladesh. Great rivers came from Himalaya, Ganges and the Brahmaputra, and make a great alluvial agrarian plain area. But in consequence of Industrial Revolution and the new phases of Industrial Revolution, transform the economic productivity and the source of wealth of nation, and Bengalia from the top go down to the bottom. Okay, the third one, Islamic world. Very important to mention Caliphates of Cordoba. There is a Muslim student. No Muslim student. Officially, according to list of enrollment students, there are a lot of Muslim students, but tell the story for them. In Cordoba, Caliphates of Cordoba, each male in the 10th century.
Cordoba, Spain.
Cordoba,
Cordoba, Spain? Or?
Spain.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because on the time, whole of peninsula occupied by Muslim troops until the end of Middle Ages. Okay, the last fort of Granada was occupied on the same year when Columbus sailed to Americas. Okay, turn back to the story. Caliphates of Cordoba, on the 10th century, no illiteracy. Each male was able to read the Quran, much higher intellectual level compared with the contemporary Europe. And the fourth, Europe. But very important to mention, later I will return to this topic, on the Middle Ages and the Antiquity, the western boundary of Europe is the Pillars of Hercule, Gibraltar, like recently. Eastern boundary is a Don River, like recently there is a war between Russia and Ukraine. Reactivated a very, very old eastern boundary of European civilization. Therefore, very useful to learn history, time by time. Because this line of fracture, in the critical historical situation, able somehow reactivate. Okay, therefore the boundary and the frame of Europe on that time was basically different. Amerindian culture like Aztec, Inca, Mochica and any other civilization lived in the Copper Age, before the Iron Age, and the last one is a Russia. It's very interesting. It's a French scholar wrote Russia to the special status. There is a special relation between France and Russia. And I asked from the French student, in the 19th century, in which country lived the highest number French speaker community? Out of France, of course. Russia. Because each of noble family, it was mandatory to learn French. Because on the time French was the language of global communication. Look at, for example, which is the official language of postal service? French. Even now. And Canada was only on the third position. Not by chance, a lot of Russian immigrants after the Bolshevik Revolution emigrated to Paris. Okay, but if we try to realize the rank list, Europe only on the fourth position. We will speak about the story, how was able to rise from the middle position to the top. Okay, thanks a lot for your attention. I ask your patience for some minutes yet.